Dominick LaCapra's book Understanding Others is a collection of essays exploring how we relate to those who are different from us, whether they are other people, animals, or those who lived in the past. His main aim is to explore how we can understand others, to dominate or erase their differences. The book is not a traditional historical work, but a collection of essays that deal with complex moral and intellectual issues. He uses examples from literature, history, and theory to show how we might better approach relationships with others in a responsible and ethical way. LaCapra argues that we often misunderstand or misuse history and that we need to be more sensitive to the trauma and experiences of others. The essays focus on topics such as Holocaust, the treatment of animals, colonialism, and the role of empathy in historical writing. The first chapter sets the stage by exploring the idea of understanding others across different boundaries: cultural, species based, and historical. Understanding is not just about knowledge or information, but about empathy and ethics. LaCapra challenges the idea that we can fully know others in a complete or objective way. He argues that we should aim for a kind of respectful engagement with others that recognizes their uniqueness and suffering. This chapter introduces the reader to his broader framework and sets the tone for the rest of the book. In the second chapter, he explores the Holocaust and the difficulties involved in writing and thinking about traumatic past. He focuses on how trauma affects both victims and his seeks those who treat historical suffering as just another object of study. He talks about acting out and working through trauma, suggesting that historians must be careful not to re traumatize or simplify the experiences of those who suffered. This chapter is deeply ethical, asking how we can write about horror without becoming numb or voyeuristic. He emphasizes the importance of empathy, but warns against emotional over identification that might erase the difference between the historian and the victim. In the third chapter, LaCapra turns to animals and how we treat them in society and in theory. This is one of the most original parts of the book. He examines the human animal divide and challenges the assumption that humans are always more important or more valuable than animals. Drawing from thinkers like Derrida, he explores how language, philosophy, and culture have traditionally set humans apart from animals. He questions this distinction and urges a rethinking of our ethical responsibilities toward animals. Can we extend empathy across species boundaries? Can we acknowledge that animals suffer in ways that matter morally? This chapter connects with broader debates about animal rights and the ethics of eating, experimenting on, or using animals. The fourth chapter focuses on the nature of historical understanding and interpretation. History is not just a list of facts, but a form of engagement with the past that always involves ethical and emotional choices. He criticizes historical writing that pretends to be completely objective or detached. He shows how every act of interpretation is shaped by the present and that historians need to be aware of their own perspectives and biases. At the same time, that this does not mean anything goes. There are still better and worse ways to understand the past. Good history requires careful thought, ethical awareness, and a willingness to listen to the voices of the oppressed or silenced. The fifth chapter deals with identity and difference, particularly in the context of colonialism, racism, and cultural domination. He reflects on how groups define themselves by excluding or dehumanizing others. He explores how power operates through representations of the other as savage, irrational, or backward. He encourages a form of identity that does not depend on hostility toward others, and he promotes forms of solidarity that respect difference rather than try to eliminate it. This chapter is relevant for thinking about multiculturalism, nationalism, and global justice. In the sixth chapter, LaCapra turns to literature and theory, particularly the role of narrative in shaping how we understand trauma and memory. He explores how literature can be a space for expressing suffering that cannot be easily spoken in historical or scientific language. He examines how novels, testimonies, and memories provide insight into the inner lives of individuals and groups who have experienced trauma. At the same time, he cautions against romanticizing trauma or turning it into a spectacle. Literature, when used carefully, can help us to engage with the pain of others in a way that is both respectful and transformative. All these themes together, he returns to the question of what it means to understand others. Whether they are other people, animals, or those who lived in the past, he argues that true understanding involves an ethical relationship, not just knowledge. It requires listening, empathy, and a willingness to be changed by the encounter. He criticizes both cold rationalism and blind emotionalism, urging a balanced approach that combines critical thought with moral responsibility.